Hi, it's Bernadette Jiwa, and I'm thrilled to be here with Tina Roth Eisenberg, who, for those of you who don't know her, is Swiss Miss in another guise. She has a design studio in New York and does lots of other interesting things, which I'd like her to talk to you about. So, thanks for doing this, Tina.
Thanks for having me.
You do so much, and I don't know where to start, but can you tell me about Swiss Miss and how that got started?
Well, Swissmas is I started as a blog when I was working as a design director at a company called ThinkMap. I was always surfing a lot and searching for new tools or resources, and while I'm very organized, I put them into bookmarks. I couldn't find anything anymore because I'm very visual and I don't remember names. So I realized I need a visual archive for all these things I find. So I started a blog, and granted, this was pre-Tumblr, pre-Pinterest. None of this existed yet. So the next best thing was to start a blog where I would just upload images with screenshots and like a little text underneath, talking about my finds. And a few months later, I realized that this wasn't as personal of an archive anymore as I thought, because I started to, ramp up a following of people that just want to see what I find. And then it turned into something that kind of is part of my business model now, because I have very subtle ads on it, but they pay enough that I was able to actually go on a 1-year sabbatical when my son was born. And I'm very lucky in that I've managed to, with my blog, create sort of a passive income generator that has freed me up to experiment on other levels.
So tell me about that. Tell me about your new business model.
My business model is, well, I'm a trained graphic designer, and I worked as a graphic designer and started also my own studio in 2006. But what I realized a few years working with my studio, and it was successful and all, I actually realized that I wasn't all that happy, even though I always thought studying graphic design, eventually that would be the ultimate goal. Yeah. So I realized that actually the things that make me really, really happy are the things that I called side projects, which was my blog. And at the time, I started a lecture series here in New York, and I made a to-do app for myself. So it's like these small things I did on the side, where I realized actually my face really lit up when I talked about these things and not necessarily my client work. So what I've realized is actually if you're able to turn your passion projects into your work, like your day-to-day work, it's a win-win for everyone around you and yourself, because when you're really thoroughly passionate about a project, it is inherently more successful and more fulfilling. And so I managed to actually now make all my side projects into my daily work life.
I want to talk a little bit more about your projects, but just before we move on from that, how do you think we get stuck then in these, I don't like to call them ruts, but how do we get stuck in places where we think we wanted to go to that place, but when we get there, it's like, oh, maybe this isn't where I wanted to be?
Well, I think it's just fear of breaking out and fear of the unknown that, like in the end of the day, we all have to, pay our rent and we have to make a living. So I feel like the thought of jumping into something completely new that might not be as safe and secure at the time is daunting. So, but what I think everyone needs to try to do that is not necessarily entirely fulfilled in what they're doing is like do that shift very slowly. Yeah. Like I didn't all of a sudden get up and say, that's it. I'm no longer, I'm quitting my job. No, not at all. It was a very slow process of ramping up my side projects that started generating a little bit more money over time. And then eventually do the switch. And even when I kind of headed to a level where it was pretty impressive that I was able to make so much money with the blog, it was still scary to say no more client work. Yeah. Like it's not that you just all of a sudden have this confidence and say, of course this works. No, it's not. Then I still to this day have moments where it's like, what am I doing? Yeah. So it's just, I just feel like it comes down to, and Bill Cosby has a beautiful quote on that, you have to want it more than you're afraid of it. Yeah. And you just, and in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you fail. Yeah. You can, in the end of the day, you can always, if you're really good at what you do, somebody will hire you back.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're not closing off that opportunity totally. You're actually just opening the door to something else and giving it a go. I work a lot with designers actually, and I know the pain of client work from them. So, and from being a client and knowing what my designer has to put up with at times,
But it's also hard to be a client, by the way. Both sides are hard.
I want to talk about my favorite project of yours, which is Tattly, and how that came about and where that's going.
So Tattly is when I started my 1-year sabbatical, client sabbatical. I sort of realized that if I can free up my mind a little bit and like free up my time, I kind of knew inherently that something will come out of it. And sure enough, I think about a month after I started my client sabbatical, my daughter came home in spring of 2011 from a birthday party. And her favorite thing about birthday parties are the goodie bags. So she's going through it and she finds this temporary tattoo. And me as a trained designer, grown up in Switzerland, it was just insult to my Swiss aesthetics. It was really badly designed and badly produced. And she asked me if I can put it on her arm. And as I did, I realized I was complaining about it. And this was not the first time I sort of to myself complained about these ugly temporary tattoos. And I have a personal rule that if I complain about something repeatedly, I need to either let it go or do something about it. And as I was sitting there and that tattoo was drying, I was like, I can totally do something about this. So I started researching what it would take to produce temporary tattoos. I reached out to some of my illustrator friends and designers and just sort of asked, would you be interested in designing temporary tattoos for kids and grown-ups if I make a really cool store? And what I didn't realize is that designers are incredibly fascinated about designing for skin. Now looking back, of course, it makes sense, right? Yeah. So sure enough, the next day I had designs in my inbox and I started building a site. And 2 months later, we launched a site with 16 designs. And while I kind of thought this could be successful, I never prepared for the success that came. Literally 2 minutes after I blogged about it and we launched, we had orders coming in from around the world. And now our birthday is in July. We're going to be 2. We're a company of 8 employees. We ship to over 90 countries around the world. We're in over 400 stores. We have over 350 designs. I mean, it's to me, it's absolutely mind-blowing that the path this has gone from the idea when I sat there with my daughter to now. And I have an amazing young team working and helping me build this business. And, I've never made a product before. This was a really steep learning curve for myself. And whenever I talk about Tattly, I tell everyone, this is like a perfect example of taking sort of a side project seriously because you never know what might happen. And also that we should never shy away of challenging a status quo. If somebody says this has been done all these years this way, you can still do it another way. I mean, Tattly makes me incredibly happy.
Yeah, well, I think it makes lots of people incredibly happy. I look at the Tattlys on Instagram and, they're on buttons. I see you put them on Easter eggs and they're, not just skin. People are using them to decorate walls and some really cool stuff at weddings. But what was interesting to me was, you didn't have a big business plan mapped out. You didn't have, this is my market and this is my customer. Not necessarily. You just had a hunch and you went with it, which is contrary to
that's kind of how I operate. I'm not saying that this is how everyone should operate, but that's how I'm like a gut feeling person. Yeah, I don't overthink things. If just my gut tells me this is the right thing to do, I usually run for it. But I run for it with such a force that people are kind of like, "Whoa, she's convincing," Yeah. So I think the enthusiasm that I bring along when I have an idea like this kind of wins people over, and they run along with me and help me build it. And my team right now is just. I keep raving about them. Like they're all really young. They're in their 20s, and they help me build this business. And they're learning. I'm running it very transparent. Like I tell them all the numbers, and we make decisions together. And I look at this as a learning experience for them as much as for me. And
that's interesting though, to me, because what I work in storytelling, and so the whole story, you've built a culture there, which is part of the story. So, your team, your product, your attitude as a leader, everything goes into building that story, which builds the brand, which, makes people love it. Really?
But in the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? I mean, if I look at myself and look at the brands I really love, like, for example, what I've learned over the past few months is there's a few products that I already liked, like just inherently, like, there was something there that I said, I like this product. And then I met the founders and I realized, of course I like the product because the outlook on life, the values of the founder trickle down in the product. And sometimes it's not something that you can put your finger on what exactly it is. It's the little details, all across the board. And I had a few of these experiences, and that's what I believe in. Like, you need to, as a founder of a company, really know what your values are and make sure they go through across the board on every single detail of your product.
Which is a huge part of your story. The interesting thing also about Tattly for me is it's not just about the product that you get. It's not about the commodity. It's about how it makes people feel to wear that, to see it, to share it, which is...
And interestingly enough is when we recently looked at the bestsellers, and all the bestsellers are the ones that are focusing on happiness and positive outlook on life, which I find really interesting. Sort of like they're already making people happy, and then they buy the ones that say you should be happy and focusing on happiness and you should smile. Isn't that interesting? It's like double dipping.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're probably, affirmations, I suppose, but probably then sharing those with their friends. And that really cool thing that I saw, which was, did you post that? I'm not too sure. It was a board that this couple had at their wedding, and they had envelopes in there. Maybe you didn't see it yet. And they were giving,
it was on the Tattly blog.
Yeah, they were giving out Tattlys, to their guests, which was incredible. It was all, affirming love and making something.
Tattlys have become a big staple at weddings.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I noticed that you're going to wedding fairs. So all these markets that are opening up for you didn't know existed. You were thinking about party bags.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, just yesterday, we had friends overs for brunch with kids, and what I noticed is that actually the grown-ups were almost more excited than the kids, and that's something I never expected, because I really did this thinking this is clearly a product geared towards kids. But no. If you look at the Tattlygrams and stuff, like, there's more grown-ups wearing them than kids at the end of the day.
Yeah, and anybody I know that buys them, actually a lot of designers buy them, but a lot of people in that, positive mindset that buy them, yogis. Yeah, incredible. Can we talk about your ToDo app?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who's kind of obsessed with workflow and my own way of organizing things, and I've always been a list maker. And so one day in my studio, I run a co-working space here in Brooklyn, and one day over lunch we started talking about the various to-do apps that are out there. And I got into this really passionate rant on how I've tried them all and that they don't work for me because they have too many bells and whistles and visually they don't work for me, and started sketching out what would be my ideal way of organizing my to-dos, which is calendar based and list based. And then my studio mate, Cameron, just started laughing at one point and goes, "Tina, for goodness sakes, just design it. You're a user interface designer. We'll build it for you," right? So even though I have been designing sites and apps for other people all these years, it didn't occur to me that I could make my own, right? I mean, duh. So I designed it and handed the Photoshop files to my studio mates, and sure enough, 48 hours later, we had a working prototype that we started using in the studio, and we never, ever thought of making actually a paid service out of it, because this is kind of how I operate. I tend to just want to solve my own problems, and then if people think that's cool, they want to use it, sure, here. So we gave ToDo away for free, and we made a little site that people can sign up in 2009. And when we blogged about it, the response was overwhelming. Like, within minutes, we had sign-ups by the thousands, and everyone wrote about it, and we were like, whoa. So we realized that there's a lot of list maker people out there like us that were really passionate about this product. So, but now fast forward 4 years, people were really, really passionate about it, and kept saying, like, can you just add like these features or make it better on, we never maintained it. So we decided that because we still get every day these passionate emails of like, you don't understand, ToDo has changed my life. Like, I feel organized. Like, there's a lot of passion out there for our product. So we decided to move it to a paid service and completely rebuild it from scratch. And we just relaunched it about a month ago. And that shift for all of us has been really hard, because we realized we love the fact that we gave it away for free, but we also realized we can't maintain it if we don't start charging for it, because it does cost a lot of money to run it on the servers, to keep maintaining it, to have a developer on staff. So we did that switch, and we're a little heartbroken that some people think that we just did bait and switch, and some people are heartbroken over the fact it's not free anymore. Yeah. But I try to explain on my blog and in the talks I'm giving why we're doing it. And it's really just because we've seen so many apps and services go out of business, either because the talent has been acquired or because they can simply not pay for it anymore. Yeah. And we just don't want to see video going away. And that's why we did the switch. But there's a lot of people who just see the value we've added by rebuilding the app completely, and it's so much better now. Yeah. So we're still getting a lot of "we love you" tweets and stuff. But I must say I've learned a lot over the last 2-3 months in terms of, if you start a service online, I would never ever give a service away for free again if I had feeling that at one point I might have to charge for it just to keep it alive. So because people don't like it when you give them something for free and then start charging them. So it's just psychologically not a smart move. So
there's so much out there for free now. I think there's this expectation that we're going to keep getting more and more for free. That's going to be tricky into the future, isn't it?
Yes, and also I think a lot of people simply, if you have never built an app, if you've never built a website, you might, and I don't fault them, because if you don't know what it takes, sure, a lot of people tell us, your app is so simple, it should really be free. And I keep thinking, well, you know what, just because it's simple doesn't mean it took a lot of time to figure it out and build it, and, So I try to understand people that criticize us, and usually I email them back very long emails explaining why we did the decisions we did, and then people right back, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But
well, I love what you're doing. I don't know where you get the time from. I really honestly don't.
Well, that's what I have I collaborate so much. It's not just me. Tatley is my team. Yeah. ToDo was rebuilt by our studio mate Johnny. I'm not sitting there doing all these things. That's just impossible. It's just, I think I just have the incredible luck of having people around me that help me build these things. Yeah. And I always say, you need to collaborate as much as you can. We need to step away from ego and find these people that you can complement your skills and build something amazing.
I think the secret from the outside looking in is that you're a really good leader who doesn't, just try and hold on to things, and that you just magnetize the right people to you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. But also, I must say, it took me a long time to let go, because I think everyone that starts out as a designer and is used to making everything themselves, the shift from making it yourself and always meddling to saying, you know what, I trust you and you can run with this, that took me a while. But once you get to the point where you trust the people, everything gets so much better. It's like this big epiphany.
Okay, so passion, trust, and running with your gut and finding the right people. All great lessons. And I've got so many designers who follow my blog, so I'm sure they're going to love this interview. Thank you so much for taking the time out today, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.